Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to a design meeting. This is our language completeness and consistency meeting about features of the Wolfram language and how to make them more complete and consistent. You know, I just realized that completeness and consistency is just like what people say for logical theories, like it's the thing Gödel's theorem shows can't possibly work for the a certain class of logical theories. I hadn't really realized we'd named this meeting series after the same idea. Okay. All right. Default values, format values, end values, sub-values. Scary business.
Right. So mostly wanted to look at some of the notes, and there is this one issue with end values, but
I think I needed to get things updated, right?
I don't think we've really touched the pages since last week. So
yeah, this machine is not.
I updated them today.
And also this machine that I'm using here, I'm not in my normal habitat. This is not my normal file system.
I see.
But I would strongly suspect the thing is oh gosh, it's going to be really slow. Well, I can try opening this anyway. It may mess up. Okay, what's the page I should open?
Well, let's start with format values.
I mean, these are very ancient things. These are 35 years old, basically.
Right.
And
yeah, that's not the current version.
Well,
so, okay.
It's probably from 10 years ago. I don't know. This is not promising because this is a slow network connection.
Perhaps I can share instead.
Sure. Hold on 1 second. Let me set something up here. Okay. Oh, that's not the right thing. It's because I have that connected to that. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Go ahead and share.
All right. Okay, so right, so format values has this internal page, but I don't know why, we documented own values, down values, and up values, but not.
I don't think we thought about these. I mean, I think we should think pretty carefully about these. We have an opportunity to do something modernizing for these because we've never documented them. So format values of F is what happens during the format phase of it's like the format evaluator, so to speak.
Right.
And N values is similarly like the N evaluator.
Yep.
So a question that I have is, what's the general case of that concept? Do you understand what I'm saying? So in other words, what we're saying is we have these kinds of values that are not part of the generic. I mean, to me, this relates also to the concept Well, okay, so we have an ordinary evaluator, and these things weave their way into the ordinary. I don't quite understand.
No, they don't. They're never part of the evaluator, right? They're never part of evaluation, right? Formatting happens after evaluation when you.
I understand when you've reached a fixed point.
Right.
You reach a fixed point, so there's no evaluation to be done by the main evaluator. Right.
Right. And so, right. So this is right. It gives printing valid printing formats involve rules for format, make boxes, and make expressions. So in fact, format values can be called either before or after the main evaluator, depending on whether these are.
Right, but does it assume in the resolution of a make boxes specification, does it assume that the evaluator will be called or not? Do you understand what I'm saying? Does it assume as an interwoven thing that the evaluator will be called?
I don't, that question makes no sense to me.
Okay, look, one possibility is you've got an expression which is inert. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is giving a further transformation on an inert expression. See what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily inert, right? In fact, this is part of what makes writing make boxes rules difficult, right? That you need to be careful not to allow it to further evaluate as you pick it apart to format it.
So does that answer Stephen's question that it's possible for at least a poorly written format value to change the underlying expression and therefore the evaluator is in fact involved?
Yes.
Yes, I guess, basically.
All right, let's zoom out a bit. I really don't think we should just steam ahead and document something we've left undocumented for 35 years. What's that?
Well, I mean, we made the decision to document it. After repeated user requests. I mean, you were part of this meeting.
I know, but I'm recanting somewhat because I think that the issue is, okay, my question is.
Although let me point out something. Format values has nothing to do, or has next to nothing to do with how formatting happens, just as down values has next to nothing to do with how evaluation happens, right? Down values is a representation of the rules you've created. It's not actually the rules. I mean, you can sort of use it to manipulate the rules, but it's not actually the rules.
Right. Well, but the question is, I mean, what we should be doing is reviewing what we're doing for these secondary evaluation types of values.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, there's a general concept of, I mean, really, okay, why are these not up values of some kind? Or are they, in a sense, generalized up values?
In a sense, they are specific up values. You can attach the rules either to make boxes directly or to your head.
Right.
So in that sense, they're not.
So my question is, could there be a general mechanism? Let's say I want to introduce, NQ as well as N, right? Could I have something where I can just say, I mean, I can right now, I can just say NQ of F blank, blah, 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 equals blah. And I mean, that's really no different. Format make boxes, the format values, if I say make boxes of F of X blank, colon equals blah, that will associate that rule with the format values of F, correct?
Probably with the format values of make boxes, but
really,
I
thought format values. I mean, I thought the whole point of format values was like up values, that it got associated with the, the head in question rather than just the generic function.
So, right. So if I say make boxes of F of X blank, standard form gets Bob. then format values of F is empty and format values of make boxes.
I don't understand this at all. What even is that? The heck is all of that? What is all of that stuff?
Well, those are rules that, I guess the cloud object people, rather than attaching the rule to the cloud object, they attached it to make boxes for some reason, which I would claim is a bug on their end.
Yeah, I think that's a horrifying thing. Right. So why is this? Okay, how do I get something associated with the format values of F?
Well, you use tag set.
Okay. And why would I know to do that as opposed to just doing the make boxes rule?
Well, that may or may not be documented, but we can document it. I mean, there are times when it's convenient to associate it to something other than the head of the first argument. For example, you might want to attach it to traditional form. But
okay, look, what I think about this is I think this deserves a deeper review. I mean, the question of whether I think this whole thing about secondary evaluators requires a deeper review, because I think we either want to introduce a mechanism in modern times where, we understand so many things better than we did 35 years ago, where you can have a general way of introducing blah, blah, blah values. We could imagine a function called extended values, right? Where extended values takes the first argument that's the type of value it is, and the second argument of the head that we're, exploring. Making sense?
Well, I mean, you expressed a logical thought. I don't necessarily agree with that thought. I mean, I think documenting these things that exist is useful to users. Well,
so what are the issues in documenting what's there? I'm not a big fan because I think it's a bit messy.
By the way, to answer your question about the tag set, I see it in the applications for make boxes.
And it doesn't otherwise say anything about that.
Well, it's titled define the formatting for a function. So, right, it doesn't call out the use of tag set, but it's explicitly saying here's how you define the formatting for a function.
Right.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what are the questions here? So what were your questions about format values?
Right. So, well, I guess there's, there is one oddity. Well, I mean, one is sort of generically, I'm creating a usage box that matches what we did for own values, up values, down values. And so, getting your sign off on that. There is this one oddity that, which I think has to do with the fact that we went, with version 3 going from the output form world to standard form world, that rules of the format, rules for the one argument form are used when formatting an output form.
That's so 1980s.
And rules for the two argument form are used for the other forms.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would help probably on that page to have a table of the other forms.
Okay.
Because not self-evident to me. Could I do it for C form or something? Probably not.
Yeah, you can define you can do it for any of the.
Okay, well, why don't we get a list of which forms one could do it for?
Okay.
I mean, this is a very long in the tooth subsystem, in my opinion. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, but I just think it could be made more general and sleeker. But I also don't think it's the highest priority thing to worry about right now. I think that the idea of mix and match formatting rules, which we have discussed for millions of years, the idea that, for example, you could say, I want traditional form, except that I want my, I don't know, my powers indicated with a wedge or something, right? This idea of mix and match rules, we've never managed to figure out how to do. See what I'm saying?
Sure. It's, I mean, well, I don't think we've invested much effort in it recently, but it's a ridiculously hard problem because, assumptions are made everywhere, not just in our code, but in user code.
Well, what do you mean? I mean, the issue is, look, the question is, given something like traditional form, is there a named way to bank switch different kinds of features there? It's similar to the problem of error messages. Is there a named way to bank switch which messages you want to get? See what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but I don't, right? I mean, there are, as a practical matter, right? There are assumptions that people make where, oh, if I just do this, it'll look like that. And so they use it. So, okay, you change how power works and suddenly, 17 other things change, or maybe don't change because somebody decided to format it and force it in some place.
Yeah, I understand. And they do an input form and it's got a bunch of crud in it that they didn't think was there and blah, 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 blah. Right. To me, this project, it comes up every so often, and I notice it when I want to, format something in a particular way, and I want to say, why can't we just have a general way of just saying, having a big long list? I mean, what it amounts to, and this is something we should consider as a project, just like we have a great big gallery of graphics possibilities based on different option settings, and just like we have plot themes. Why don't we have format themes? See what I'm saying?
So you switch your formatting from physicist to electrical engineer or something. And
for example, yes.
Yeah,
I think people would find that very useful. I mean, we just didn't have the idea of plot themes. We didn't have the idea of themes when we were designing the standard form, traditional form, etc. structure.
Right. I mean, well.
Okay,
yeah.
We should move off this topic because we
right.
have only a limited amount of time. I think the conclusion, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not thrilled about documenting this because I think it's, we have held it undocumented for 35 years, basically, specifically because 34 years maybe for this one. I don't know.
Well, I mean, really, it's 25 years because the format values of version 3 is quite different from the format values of versions 1 and 2.
No, so we changed it.
Yes. Well, we had to, right? Make boxes and make expression didn't exist in versions 1 and 2. Right. I think this, right. So, right. So when you assign to right. So this is the weird thing that I agree. I mean, I'm not sure what would break if we were to change this, but right, in any way. But this is one of the weird things I noticed, right? So
yeah, I get it.
When you assign to the one argument form, it creates rules for output form, standard form, and traditional form. But right, so it creates it basically creates two rules, one for output form and one for standard form and traditional form. And but the actual, right, the thing that it creates for output form is a one argument thing, and the thing it creates for standard form and traditional form
Okay.
is a two argument thing.
My opinion is that the right thing to do here is to, zoom out a bit and ask the question, in 2021, how would we design this? Right? How would we design kind of the thing that allows users to add formatting information? I don't know the answer to that question. I think we should answer that question before we commit ourselves to this. And, once we know the answer to that question, we build a bridge back to whatever we have right now. But let's answer that question. Because, for example, I think, format themes is a good idea, which would solve a bunch of problems. And how that relates back to this, I don't know. So that's what I would like to suggest, that we, commission an effort to just think about, for format values and end values, what are the other ones? Default values. That's another can of worms.
I don't think default values is that bad. And certainly I think sub values don't really doesn't have any of these issues. Right.
How deep does sub values go? Goes all the way down? It's the head of
it
the
goes
head
all
of
the way
head.
down. I think it, yeah. Well, we can.
By the way, the blue in default values probably should be default values.
Yes, it said format values there.
Yeah, that probably. Right. Yeah. So it goes as far down, and so here we have a 2 arg. Do we have a three guy? Maybe we don't have an example. But we certainly
I get it. It's always the head of the head of the head.
Right. So,
And I don't know what happens with tag set if it's the head of the tail of the head, so to speak.
Well,
again, look, we just haven't looked at this stuff in decades. Okay. So it's a mistake to just say, let's burn in everything we're doing, having not thought about it for decades. We should just have a think in modern times.
Okay, what does have a think mean?
It means somebody's got to dig in and think about it. And
Okay,
I'm not sure I don't think this is the highest priority, but it means, ask the question. If necessary in one of these meetings, ask the question, starting with what we know today, how would we design these features? Because we haven't documented them, and we didn't document them for a reason, which is we were not fully happy with that design. We thought it was kind of arbitrary. That's why we didn't document them for all this time. So, again, I just said several things we should look at for format values, like format themes.
Well, sure. I agree.
Okay, the other question is evaluation of a format. When you evaluate a format value, what exactly role of the evaluator is taking place? In other words, is there any sandboxing of the evaluator, or does it just do standard evaluation?
It just does standard evaluation.
Is that the right thing?
Well, what's the alternative to that?
I don't know. A sandboxed evaluator. We have the concept of controlled evaluate, which we have not implemented yet. But I could see that will be relevant to this. Like, for example, I could imagine a format value where you're trying to format code. How would you format code using format values? Some bizarre thing with hold form where, as soon as you touch any of the code inside the hold form, as soon as you take it out of its protective bubble, the thing will explode.
Well, I'm not sure if you're asking about, the formatting rule or the.
I'm talking about the right-hand side of the formatting rule, and I'm saying that what we have here, that there's a question of, okay, let's imagine you have a piece of code, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't it be nice if you could just say, just like you can say Command-Shift-T to put something into traditional form, that happens without evaluation?
That's not completely true. It goes through more or less the same evaluation of make expression and then make boxes.
Okay, well,
It's technically slightly different. It's going through convert form, but it's basically consulting the format values and doing the same.
But if I say 2 + 2 and I say Command-Shift, if I say, let's say I say 2 wedge 2, right. Try it.
Yeah. I mean, sure, but
try it. I just want to make sure I understand what's going on. If you say, we're not seeing wherever you're typing. Oh, there we go. Okay, type 2 wedge 2.
2 wedge 2.
Mm-hmm. Wedge.
Okay.
No, not that wedge. Just a regular Shift 6. Okay, now go select the cell and now say convert to traditional form.
Right, I do that, which is exactly the same thing I would get from make expression of row, or I guess.
Yeah, I understand of row boxes, but it isn't the same thing. Okay, so the question is, what's inside the form?
Stephen.
It still went to the kernel via the link from the front end, right?
So, what superscript box, right? So,
okay, but to the user.
So this happened. I misspelled super. So this happened, and then make boxes at % happened.
I get it. I understand. But to the user, it looks like you started off with an expression that was unevaluated, 2 wedge 2.
Mm-hmm.
And without evaluation, you did transformation to traditional form, which is all good. But what I'm asking is, programmatically, if I had like a piece of code that was in a hold, for example, say hold of 2 wedge 2.
Yep.
Right? And now I try to write the code that will do the thing you just did.
Well, that's raw boxes of make boxes at that, right?
Okay, but let's say we want to do the 2 wedge 2 transformation.
You want to do.
I want to
2 wedge 2, not 2 + 2.
Yeah, I want to do X blank wedge Y blank, and I want to show it as a superscript. I don't get what's happening there.
Right. This is an expression, right? This is the expression power of 2, 2. Make boxes takes that expression and converts it to boxes, and then we display those boxes.
Okay.
Can you take off the raw boxes?
Well, then you'd see the superscript box, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but now what happens if I, instead of saying hold of 2 wedge 2, I say hold of superscript box or superscript 2, 2?
Oh, well, you get something that looks pretty much the same thing.
But it isn't the same, in fact.
It's not. And that's because, right, we don't want that to, right? Superscript is designed to produce boxes that won't get turned into power.
I understand that. Look, I don't think this is properly thought out for what we know today. I mean, again, it's going to be an hour-long meeting just in its own right to talk about this. I think it's a fine thing to talk about, but let's, whether we have to break these into separate discussions for sub-values versus format, I think we should have a discussion about format values. Yeah, I think we should start with that, because I think that's the most interesting and the most complicated of these.
Okay.
Okay, and let's get that on an agenda. We can even have its own custom meeting if we think we can swing that.
Okay.
Okay, because this isn't, it's, you know, let's not give up the opportunity that we've created for ourselves by not documenting these things for decades. And let's think about, you know, I don't know who else should be involved in that discussion of what can we do today. There's several other people who are interested in that question. I mean, I know, Jason Harris has worked on this for years, and there are multiple people who will have opinions about this. And we should try to get a meeting specifically about this topic.
Okay.
Right, let's go on to the next. You can go ahead.
Right. Well, I mean,
we shouldn't document any of these. We don't know what we're doing. We made a mistake previously by saying, let's just rush and document them. I don't think it's a good idea. And I don't think anything is going to burn if we don't document them this week, so to speak. But I think it's...
Well, other than, the hours Ian and I spent writing all of these pages.
Well, they may very well be things where we'll just press the button to say, finish them.
Okay. Well, I will point out that I think I really don't see what the controversy over sub-values is, but
I don't either. That one seems the least dangerous.
So, right, because this one really doesn't have any weird stuff. It goes straight into the main evaluator. I'll check the thing about multiple levels, and maybe I'll report back on sub-values.
Right. I think sub-values we could do. I think that sub-values is the easiest. Default values is next in line. Yep. I think both format values and end values are difficult.
Yes, and end values in particular has an issue with infinity. That.
Okay, well, let's also ask the question. I mean, then Rob Knapp should be involved in the end values thing. Let's get the right group of people for both format values and end values. I think these are both opportunities. Format values are a particularly good one.
Okay.
All right, why don't you unshare, then I can go back and share again. All right. Oh boy.
Oh wait.
Boy, we have some horrifying stuff here. What's that?
Okay. I guess I missed this when I was looking at the agenda. The agenda should have included the thread on. Right, there was an email thread about this. Right, so we talked about this last time, and you said we should figure out what people do out in the world, and I did some scans and said, okay, well, this is basically what people do out in the world, and Michael Trott agreed. And
what's the answer? So can I see that? Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So basically they do a column with conditions. So in the case of,
maybe we should see that. Can you just send it by mail and I'll pick it up here.
Okay.
Okay, that's
why am I not? Oh, is it in?
Okay, did you send it?
I just now located it, so it's being in the process of being sent.
I'm beginning to regret saying, sure, let's do this meeting today. Okay, did you send it?
Yep. Or at least I think my email client is spinning. Maybe if I
haven't received it. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. I mean, unless you think there's a very definitive answer here. Do you think there's a definitive answer?
Well, I mean, we have something that's implemented in a branch.
Okay.
And
you want to show it?
Well, it's what you see on the screen.
But you just told me that people formatted in a column of some kind.
Right, and that's what there is there. You're not sharing at the moment. So.
I know that, and I'm not
Okay.
getting the mail that you sent. So
Okay.
okay,
Well,
I think we have to put this through another time.
but
So what are you saying? That this delta k equals 2, is that a real thing or not?
yes,
So what do people normally do? Do they normally write that, or do they write something different?
it depends on what the condition is. I mean, so the most common thing is to actually just reindex so you don't have anything. But
Okay.
when you don't do that, then they'll write the condition. They'll have a column with a condition or conditions.
What do you mean by a condition? You mean k less than 17 or something? Or you mean k not equal to 17?
Or k odd,
Okay, fine.
K divides 3.
They might write k equals 1 to 9, and then underneath they write k not equal to 7. Right? That's the type of thing you mean by a condition, right?
Sure.
Okay. We don't have do we have any way of representing that construct? Sum from 1 to 9 excluding 17, 7 or whatever it is.
Not as such, no.
Okay, so we therefore don't think we care about having a format for that, correct?
Correct.
I mean, okay. Because
Right,
for us, what we would do is we would write if k equals 7, 0, otherwise f of k. Right?
Sure. Or we would
Yeah. So that would be a thing.
or
okay,
we would use the list, right? We'd use the
wait, what does this
list.
look like if this is a list? It
doesn't format.
Okay, so that will be a thing to ask about. So that will be a k is an element of. That would be what we might say there is, okay, so if I want this and I say traditional form of that, comes back with nothing. So, I mean, what about this? Why doesn't this look like sum and then underneath k element of 3, 4, 5? Or k equals 3, 4, 5?
Because, unlike the other case, it, so the case that is implemented actually has a reasonable chance of looking respectable in a formatted form, whereas the arbitrary list case does not.
Well, unless it's just two values, k equals minus 1.
Sure, but what are the odds that you're going to call sum with a list of two things?
I haven't a clue.
Well, I think do.
In those cases, you would just
small.
write the sum. You would do
Right.
this plus that.
Yes, I agree. So this case, so what I'm asking you is, what do people do in this case where, if they say, I would imagine they say k equals 1, 3, dot, dot, dot. Am I wrong?
I think
you obviously have examples, so let's look at the examples.
In that case, Stephen, I think you would have somewhere, like say capital S.
By the way,
equals,
your mail still has not arrived.
You would have like somewhere capital S equals your list of things, maybe with the dot dot dot, and then you would sum over stuff in S.
I understand that,
yeah,
but that's not this case. I'm asking about this particular case here, where which is the case that you say was implemented in the 1990s, right? Is the case where there is a step. How do people write the step in the literature? And you say the number one thing they do is to transform it so the step is 1. I get
Correct.
that. If they're going to have it with the step not being 1, what do they write?
They will write, k equals 1 to 9, k odd.
Okay, so they will write the words k odd underneath.
Right.
So they'll write a constraint underneath.
Right.
Okay. So they will not write a delta k kind of thing, correct?
I guess not.
Okay. Unless we can, okay,
usually.
we need to look at that what you actually found. But let's look at what you found when we can see what you found. But I'm not buying this, given that nobody seems to do it in the literature. And although it's somewhat clear what it means. I don't know. And if that's a finite difference delta, that's a very weird object, because that's a finite difference operating on a variable, which would normally, I don't even understand what that would mean. A finite difference operator operating on a variable, what would that mean?
I'm not sure.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. We're going to run out of time in 9 minutes, so let's move on. Okay. Okay. File. This is about grep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Ethan is pointing out that file system map and file system scan should have some more sophisticated options. And I think I agree with that. We implemented them as initial in-core kinds of things. So let's have a little talk about file system map, for example. Actually, file system map is both are interesting cases. So one question is, in what order do you visit the files? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Which right now is undefined, right? They're visited in the order that they appear in file names, correct?
Well, it depends.
Well, okay, so that brings us back to the question of file names. What order does file names return files in? I believe the answer to that is it returns them in alphabetical order, correct? So the idea would be to have a sorting option for file names that would also serve as a sorting option for file system scan. Am I making sense? Just like when you know, in any old file browser, you have a sorting option. Right? You understand what I'm talking about, yes?
So you're talking about sorting by date versus
size, whatever you can sort by in a standard file browser. I don't know, what can you sort by? Date, modified, size, kind. How about that for us beginning? Right? Is this the wrong set of people to discuss this?
The question is what is this that you want to discuss?
What I want to discuss,
we were talking about grep and grep
right.
like
We're talking about turning file system scan. That's a good idea from Ethan to have a traversal order, right? What I'm saying is that's the same problem as the question of what order does file names return the files in.
I don't understand why you would care about the traversal order. And in fact, in order to guarantee a traversal order, you'd have to traverse the whole thing twice.
No, you wouldn't. The operating system gives you the list of files.
In whatever order it decides to give them.
Well, let's talk about that implementation question. Right. So one thing you can do, presumably, okay. So let's understand this, right? So one possibility would be.
But I will also
wait a second. The issue is that file system map automatically picks up the list of files, right? Okay. Whereas it could be the case that file system map takes a list of files and maps over that list of files, but that's equivalent to map then.
Right.
Okay. But the point being made is, okay, one point is what happens to, okay, one question is, this is automagically doing the files in alphabetical order. That's not obviously correct. Clearly, you can do a key sort at the end, but the question is, if, for example, you want to terminate early, like as soon as you found that, let's say you do file system scan, and as soon as you found something, so I mean, this is where.
Sorry, I already want to quibble about alphabetical order, because I assume that it's doing parent directories before navigating into subdirectories, though I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I think you're
Which
right.
might not be the same as alphabetical order when you include the slash or backslash or whatever the
Yeah,
file
I'm sure you're right.
path separator is.
Right. So it's a depth first order of the tree. It's a depth first traversal of the tree, probably.
Well,
Depth first, where what I mean by depth first is it alphabetizes at each level, presumably lexicographic order, then does the subtrees, then recurses back up.
Right. Well, right. But now if we make any sort of guarantees about traversal order, then any sort of parallelization or optimization we can make that way is lost.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Okay. Okay. So I agree that a progress monitor would be nice. That shouldn't be too hard to add. I mean, right now, presumably the first thing file system scan does is to find the list of files, correct? Who does somebody who implemented it, is somebody who implemented it here? No? Well, then let's do this meeting when that person is here.
Okay.
Okay. But in terms of parallelism, that's an interesting idea. Again, we have the wrong set of people here to discuss that. But in a case where we have a shared file system, and this is a read-only operation, which this is, correct? Is it correct that this is only a read-only operation?
What is a read-only operation?
That would depend on F, right? If I did delete file, if I did file system map of delete file, then it's obviously not.
Okay, fine. So it isn't necessarily, but file system scan, no, it again is not read-only. Okay, the question is, if you have a parallel operation and you have, right, the question is, could we run this in parallel? You know, in other words, how equivalent is it to parallel map of F applied to these files? Do you see what I'm saying? Okay, let's see if we can have one topic where we actually have the right people here. Okay.
Well, Ethan's comments were about grep. I don't see where how you're jumping from his comments to file system map.
What is, okay, what's the difference between grep and
I mean, it's like a file system cases or select.
Well, right. So grep looks, I mean, obviously there are different modes, but grep, finds occurrences of a string in a file or files.
That's what find does.
No, it's not. Find takes a stream and it moves the stream past the first line that contains the given text. Grep returns all occurrences in a.
Isn't this find list?
I forgot about find list. Right. Yeah, and you can limit it to the first end. Right. So I guess grep is files. So grep, I guess, is file system map of find list.
Why does it need the file system map?
Well, because at least as
in the file, I see. This is, I see.
Right. The first argument is a list of files. I guess we could add a recursive goes to whatever. Right, and I presume it would just barf if you give it a directory name at the moment.
I'm sure it does.
Does find list work with a pattern, like a string pattern?
That's what I was wondering, because I was wondering how you get context.
Yeah, that's the other thing grep gives you, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is an unbelievably old function. Okay, this was this version 1? No, version 2. Wow, it's modern.
Right. I'm just saying, right, which is why I was saying, the existing functions don't fit very neatly into, find list certainly fit, the email that was sent to TLCC mentioned find and file system map. And I was saying that's not a good map or
okay, so fine. So
grep.
we've also got the issue of, okay, we've got several issues here. We've got, okay, if we were going to design a grep-like function, it seems to me a good place to start would be to try and have a function basically called grep that can be put in the function repository that has the features that we think it needs. Okay, which probably means returning an association that says file name, line number, blah, 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 snippet, blah, blah, blah. I'm a little bit unclear. Wait a minute, what's the difference between that and text search? Why isn't what we're asking for just text search?
Doesn't text search look for, not string patterns, but the, right. I thought it looked for.
Well, how about we find out, how about we do this, iterate this again with the right people here, okay? But I agree that it's a reasonable thing to want both sleeker file system map. The one thing that's absolutely clear is the progress monitor is clearly a good idea and uncontroversial, I think, isn't it? Okay, if nobody says anything, we can't do a meeting. Is that uncontroversial? To have a progress monitor.
Well, it's not something, right? We can't give really a very good progress monitor, right? We could have one that's saying, scanning it's scanning J of J max, but J max would be continuously increasing as it recursed over the directory structure.
You could just show the current file name, couldn't it?
Well, that would be
even
sort of,
even if it doesn't necessarily know how many files it's going to be scanning up front.
Well, it may know how many files it's scanning.
It may not. I'm not making that
but we don't
assumption.
know because the person who implemented isn't here, so we don't know if it knows how many files there are to scan. If it knows,
it doesn't.
Look, if it's one directory, it knows. It just does stat on that directory. Then it knows. If there are nested directories, then it doesn't know.
Right, but yes, but
okay, so there's a case in which it knows, and that case is not an unimportant case.
Well, right, but the default is to recurse, right? So
I understand that.
So it would have, fine.
I don't know what stat exactly returns. Does it tell you if there are any directories in that directory?
I don't think it does, but
okay, we don't know, but we don't know.
Yes, I'm not certain.
Okay,
right. I'm just saying it won't right until it knows. Right. So if it were so lucky that the first directory it scanned had no subdirectories, then it would know up front. But other than that, right, it's not going to know.
I understand. So we try and do the best we can, which includes just saying scanning this file. But I suspect we can know, and it's not obvious to me that we don't know what the code does. So let's not waste our time discussing this, because the code may, for whatever reason, I don't know what it would be, upfront figure out what files it's going to be scanning. It may need to do that for reasons that neither you nor I know. Or it may not need to do that. I do not know. Huh. No, timed is obviously wrong. Look, the problem is it looks really stupid to say date list plot for a thing which lasts 2 minutes. Am I making sense?
I think so. You just don't like the formatting of the times as, 237 to 239 or whatever.
No, I don't care about that. I care about the name, date list plot. If the span of time involved is 2 minutes, saying date list plot is kind of stupid. See what I'm saying? Independent of what defaults there are for the actual, formatting of the ticks and so on.
But it's taking dates, right? It's not right that the x-axis are still dates.
It can be date objects or time objects. Right, Brett?
Yes.
Okay.
But I mean, it doesn't treat time objects any differently than
I don't care.
Yes, I'm just.
We're talking about time objects, and you got to know the kind of secret knowledge that even though your data is specified as a time series with which could have time objects in it, secret knowledge actually use date list plot to plot that. That seems silly. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I don't think we need time list plot, but I don't want to get into why right now because we all need to leave soon, and it will come up soon enough.
Okay. Well, hopefully it'll come up in part of the design of time series, right? Like you can just say list plot of a time series, right?
Yep.
That might work. That might work. I agree that might work. That would be a good solution, probably. Why didn't we do that originally? Why didn't we build more things into list plot originally?
I mean, list plot of time series works right now, just does stupid things with the ticks. Because it's just showing absolute time on the x-axis.
But that's just a bad idea.
Is it showing absolute time? Maybe it just throws away the timestamps and just shows indexed. I don't remember.
Okay, but so long as that can be fixed, then we might have a solution here, which I consider to be a better solution than adding another than what I suggested.
Yep. So.
Okay. This wasn't our best ever LCC. It felt like, we didn't have the right people and we weren't really didn't really have the right prep for this. But that's what this process involves. This is some polishing and there are rough edges. Okay. Anyway, look, I mean, just to summarize, I think this one, look at sub-values, look at default values. Then we need other meetings about format and N. This one, I don't know. I just think this is probably one of those lost in the code type things. By the way, I think I still don't have your mail, so.
Okay, so
So something went wrong there.
Yes.
So if you can send that out, then at least we can take a look at it.
I sent it to you. I don't know if you got it.
I did not. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. I did get it. My apologies. I did get it. I did get it. I'm sorry. Oh, it's part of a long thread.
Right. So, yeah, I'll. Right. So I sent an email. Michael responded publicly in support and linked to some examples.
All right. I see these examples. I mean, these examples, as you say, they give a condition like P even or something like that. P equals N mod M. That's what I'm seeing here.
Right.
Right. I don't think we're going to synthesize something that says, K is congruent to blah mod whatever, because we can't even do that. I mean, to me, what this is saying is there is a way that people do sums, specify sums that we might consider for sum itself, which is a condition. And then we would have a way to format it. But can you find even a single example where somebody has a notation for the pure? I mean, I've done this myself. And what I write is k equals 1, 3, 5, dot, dot, dot. And then I write an infinity at the top, or whatever it is. Right? That's what I've done. So I don't think we like that particularly. Okay. All right, let's wrap up here. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. See you later.